left wing is kind of angry about the court. They're angry about a series of court decisions, from the Chevron decision to the EPA decision to the Supreme Court throwing out the obstruction of an official proceeding, the so-called Section 1512 provision, to the Supreme Court granting a large scope of presidential immunity to President Trump. And as you'll see, these proposals are aimed at sort of undercutting some of that, even though they don't explicitly say that. So let's look at the proposal. It's got three parts. Number one, no more immunity for crimes a former president committed while in office. Well, you can see the nakedly partisan aspect of that. Well, it's not strictly speaking partisan, because it does mean that if something like that were to pass, in theory, a Republican district attorney in Texas or Louisiana or anywhere could indict Biden as soon as he leaves office, because he would be a former president. He could be indicted for bribes. He could be indicted for selling influence. He could be indicted for treason. There'd be all kinds of things you could indict him for. But this is aimed at Trump. It's quite obvious that they're upset about the immunity decision, and so this no more immunity for crimes is quite pointedly aimed at one Donald J. Trump. Number two, term limits for Supreme Court justices. By and large, when you have a Republican majority that is 5-4 or 6-3, any facially neutral limitation is going to affect the Republicans more than the Democrats, for the simple reason that there are more Republicans on the court than there are Democrats. And it's kind of like saying, let's say, for example, you had any kind of group that is made up of 90% Democrats, and you said, all right, let's have term limits for this group. They can only serve one term, then everybody has to get out. Nobody can run again. Who's that going to hurt more? Well, the Democrats, because they've got 90%. So this proposal for term limits, again, even though facially neutral, is aimed at undercutting our side. And finally, a binding code of conduct for the Supreme Court. The question here, of course, is who establishes this binding code. And I think by and large, the idea is to come up with various schemes, again, to put a leash on a conservative court. Now,